Okay, so before I get started going on about different communication things I've learned from my time at IPFW, I just quickly want to say that the biggest thing that I have taken from my time at IPFW, aside from different skills, is understanding that you get out of it what you put into it. And I know a lot of communication professors say to own your education, and I just want to say that that does instill a sense of motivation, and I wish more teachers would um, emphasize that a little bit more. There were only a couple that did, and I think that if more tried to motivate their students like that, it would really help them, because you have to work hard and know your worth, and know that your education is going to help you down the road get a job that you really want. So by teachers saying that to me and me deciding that I did want to own my education, I was able to work very hard and, not cut corners and own it. I knew that it was for me, getting an A might look good on paper, but really understanding the different skills is what's important. And I also learned that good things take a lot of work. You can't just half-heartedly do things. And understanding this, I feel, has given me an insight on how work is going to be for the rest of my life. Because I know that I'm not going to, do my work and my job half-heartedly. And college really did help me get to that point. So going on to the actual skills and abilities regards to communication, I have 4 biggest points that I want to touch on, which are empathy, intercultural communication, persuasion, and team skills and handling conflict, because these are the 4 biggest things that have already shaped my life a lot in my work life and personal life. So these are the biggest things that I have taken from my communication major. As for my portfolio will help assist me to get the job that I talked about in my synthesis paper, which was the social media specialist position, because it consists of examples that demonstrates an understanding of each of those 4 skills. So my ability to understand empathy, my understanding of how to handle intercultural communication, not just recognize it, and how to give and receive ethical persuasion, and probably most importantly is collaboration and conflict management. So overall skills gained. First, I want to touch on empathy. I can't show my portfolio since I am doing this on my computer, but it is under Objective 8 in my portfolio. I used a mini ethnography to explain how I know how to evaluate a group, and through evaluating this group, I gained a huge insight on empathy and how to put yourself in other people's shoes to better facilitate that communication. So that mini ethnography that I did in organizational communication with Kevin Stoller really helped me to understand that people don't just behave in ways for the heck of it. They usually are behaving in a way because of either their background, of how they were raised. What they're doing is likely, in their opinion, what they think is right. So being able to understand, have the empathy, put yourself in someone else's shoes has allowed me to be able to stand there and say, okay, I understand where you're coming from. This is how we're going to tackle it. And that is something that's extremely beneficial in my personal life and work life. Second thing, intercultural communication. I learned a ton about this in Melissa Dietrich's class We looked at different things that various cultures find as extremely rude and disrespectful that Americans probably wouldn't. I find this very important, especially because in today's age, we are communicating with people across the world at a snap of a finger. Skype, webcam, even phone calls. We are no longer restricted to working within our nation or state's walls. So we need to understand how to communicate and understand why different cultures talk and behave in ways that they do, and how you should accommodate their beliefs, especially if you are trying to persuade or get them to be on your side, which is every job's goal essentially. So understanding that you need to research the culture. You need to know what's acceptable and what's not. In some countries, a thumbs up means good job. In some, it means something extremely rude and unacceptable. So by understanding those little things, you can better maintain a positive communication, make sure that you're getting business done productively, and you're not blowing something huge because you simply didn't know and understand their culture. So away from that is persuasion. I took Principles of Persuasion with Adam Dirksen, which is an extremely tough class, but I learned so much in it. This is covered in Objective 7, and we really looked at different ethical ways in which you can receive and send persuasion, essentially. So being a critical receiver means you're not just believing everything you hear. If it's your job in a position to decide whether or not you're taking on a new client, you cannot just believe what they tell you. You need to be able to identify, dirty tricks, different techniques that would tell you that they probably aren't the best option, best client, and, opportunity for your company. With that said, persuading a group for a company is extremely important, knowing that you need to have credibility. You cannot persuade without credibility and knowing how to build that credibility. Different things that I've learned that can help build credibility, remaining authentic, telling your crowd, your mission, communicating with them in a way that they can relate to. Different techniques. Is your group more persuaded by logistical and analytical things, or are they more on the emotional side? I was an intern at Aaron's House for Grieving Children. Grieving children is a very heavy topic, and I took that and was able to use it to my advantage as I made promotional videos to increase volunteers for the organization. So I was able to pull different messages out of volunteer testimonies to create an emotional story and kind of pull on the heartstrings of people to increase their motivation and their drive to, move to action. So persuasion is huge. That's something that can help you in any position. Team skills with collaboration is another thing that a lot of companies are really wanting people to know and know how to do it well. So being able to communicate with the team and not shut anybody out. This is covered in Objective 8 and 9. I talked a lot about this in small group communication with Kevin Stoller. That was a great class to really understand that communicating in a group is not as easy as a lot of people think. You have to be very mindful. You have to pay attention. If you don't, you are going to be wasting a lot of time and employers' money being in meetings that are not being productive. You're paying employees then who aren't really getting anything done, and once everybody disperses from the group, if you aren't going to leave and understand the mission and how to get there, that's more money that's lost. So it's very important. So being able to have that open floor, being able to encourage other people to share, because the whole point of collaboration is, if I can use, my idea and get other people's perspectives on it to build it to something great. They say 2 + 2 is 5. By combining them, you can get something greater than by yourself. That's very important as well. Conflict management and avoiding conflict is, I would say, probably the biggest thing that I learned, and the most important thing. Handling conflict correctly can change your life. I have already realized that knowing how to do this has changed my relationships in my personal life. I am so much happier now that I know how to handle conflict. Instead of, taking the fool's choice. We read Crucial Conversations in Organizational Communication with Stoller. When you're faced with conflict, you can either run from it, which is the worst thing you can do, or you can fight it, which is the second worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is create that, shared pool of meaning. So you're faced with conflict, instead of pointing fingers, getting mad at someone, or just walking away and acting like it didn't happen, talk, communicate with the person, and tell them where you're coming from, and genuinely care and ask why and, from what stance are they coming from. Just by showing that authenticity, they're going to share with you, and you're going to realize that you do have common ground and that the conflict isn't as big as what it may appear to be, where you would never have been able to recognize that had you not sat down and taken the time to resolve the conflict. So all in all, these skills I think are going to be very beneficial in my job search. I talked about the social media specialist position with Levitate in my synthesis paper, and these skills, which are laid out in my portfolio, I think would be very beneficial to show to that employer, because in this position, I will be communicating and being the face of social media platforms for different health organizations. These people need to trust me. I need to be able to build my credibility. I need to be able to persuade their audience, so identifying who it is, using empathy to understand the company's goal. I need to be able to talk for them, not for myself, because it's their branding and it's their company on the line. Understanding how to do that is crucial. Again, the intercultural thing is something that is going to increase, I think, even more as time goes on. This company in particular has already done a ton of work with people all over the world. So being able to make sure you aren't posting something that is extremely rude. The last thing a client wants is to pay somebody to offend their audience. So understanding how to do that, crucial for this position as well. Collaboration is crucial when working with my coworkers, making sure we all understand what our part is, understanding that if I don't understand something, someone else might be able to kind of clarify for me. And, vice versa. I might be an expert on social media for a coworker who doesn't really know anything about it. And I can, go back and forth, help each other out on that. In conflict management, you're going to have conflict in any job. And, as I discussed, being able to handle that is something that not everybody knows how to do, and I think puts me at quite an advantage when entering the workforce. So, all in all, my courses at IPFW have been very beneficial in my understanding of how to communicate. I thought I knew how to communicate just like most people do, and I realized that I didn't. But I can confidently say that now I think that I do have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to communicate with anybody of any diverse personality, and that is something that I think would make me an asset to any team. So all in all, the evidence within my portfolio demonstrates that I do have an understanding of different skills and different ways in which I can help any organization grow.